Well, hello and thank you for joining me for another Alex on Tech and iTWireTV interview. Today I'm joined by Nick Lennon. He's the Vice President APAC at Mimecast. Welcome to the program.
It's great to be here.
Great to have you join us. So we're in the midst of the Sydney Mimecast Connect APAC event with the tagline, Work Protected Together. So can you please tell us more about the event and the main themes that you'd like people attending and watching this video to remember the event for?
Well, look, it's great to be back after sort of a few years of doing this virtual.
Yeah.
And to have such a great audience in Sydney, Singapore and Melbourne has been really fantastic. So it's been great turnout. And that's a really big part of Work Protected Together. It's really about bringing the community together, both our customers, prospects that are seeing some of the challenges out there, but equally as important, our alliance providers and our partners who together are solving some of the security challenges that every organization face. But we recognize this is really about being a strong cyber community, working together, sharing threat intelligence, sharing best practices, understanding how organizations are staying ahead of these risks, and then taking that learning and implementing it within the organizations that we serve.
Okay, so 2022 was a banner year for cybersecurity breaches, especially with the Optus and Medibank hacks in Australia. So how can CISOs translate those breaches into better cyber resilience?
Oh, absolutely. I think this really is what community defense is all about, because a lot of those shared learnings are understanding the incident that those organizations were exposed to and being very open and transparent about communicating that learning to the industry, so that we can all take advantage of that new awareness and make sure that we reduce the risk surface. But look, given the volume of risks and the sort of constant stream of threats that organizations are seeing, we're really focused around how organizations support their people and really take advantage of the opportunity to invest in their people, help them through their mental health and their mental health awareness, be very deliberate around how to protect the data and the data that all of our organizations are accumulating. And in some cases today, recognizing that not all of that data is necessary, which again is a big learning that we saw from the breaches last year. And then finally looking at communications and recognizing that this communications journey that we're on is starting to evolve very quickly. Corporate applications like email were the core of how businesses operated some years ago, but now we're seeing risks that are showing up through collaboration tools, through, personal communications on mobile devices. And that's an opportunity for us to get our arms around all of the problems that organizations are facing and solve this as a collective industry.
And we now also have the threat of AI-generated threats, and presumably Mimecast will be using AI in its own technologies to have the good AI fight the bad AI.
Absolutely, we already do. But look, that's a huge change that we've seen again at the back of last year with, what ChatGPT has shown up and doing. And there's a real shift in the industry around how do we understand what change that's going to make for our teams in sort of being able to cultivate good AI and sort of share and implement some of the scale capabilities, but also recognizing what are the risks that show up as a result of us considering huge data platforms that may be more important for an AI strategy. So with that, there's a good and a bad, and that's a big conversation that we're having these 3 days.
Now, Mimecast also released its State of Email Security 2023 report recently, and I'll link to that report in the article that this video is embedded into. But what are some of the highlights that you can just share now?
Yeah, look, 3/4 of Australian security leaders are still worried every day by the impact of an email-related cyber breach. So that's a huge part of the, population that is still dealing with something that really has been sort of evolved and morphing for the last 20 years. So Mimecast got a really big role to play in sort of helping organizations be aware of that risk, and then solving that through, implementing controls and capabilities. Additionally, security awareness training has become a really big topic in the industry as we see humans as the last layer of defense. And what's surprising is that nearly 1/4 of organizations only have one training moment for their staff each year, which doesn't feel like enough.
Should almost be every day, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And surprisingly, 5% of organizations in Australia don't do anything around awareness training. So that's a conversation that we're really helping people become familiar with, understand how easy it can be to get that constant narrative going and make sure that their staff feel protected, but also feel part of the mission that their organization's going about to protect that data, the communications, and the welfare of their individuals.
And there's some best practices there in terms of making sure you train all your staff on the latest and greatest email threats. But what are some of the other best security practices that companies today should be implementing, and which were also encapsulated in the recommendations from the CISOs of Mimecast Customer Advisory Board?
Yeah, look, I think there's a lot of learnings that have come. Firstly, I think we're part of an ecosystem. So recognizing that this is an interconnected system of systems, and a big part of that is being in control of sort of what are those best practices or best of breed capabilities, and how do they make sure that they hand off so that you've got I guess the sum of parts is much more greater than the individual components making that up. There's a real conversation around people. I think what we've been through in the last 3 years recognizes the burnout, the stress, the day-to-day struggle that our security teams have been not only doing the work, but then protecting their organizations. And the third part really has been around how do we take the learnings from all of the incidents that we've seen, but also the learnings that we understand, that we sort of learn day to day in helping our staff become cyber aware. And that isn't just at work. It's recognizing that there's an opportunity to be deliberate around people's personal lives, help them in their sort of personal situations, and that way they can take those learnings into the corporate environment as well.
Now, when we're at these sorts of events, obviously you have a number of customers here, but you also would have prospective customers who are looking to see what the Mimecast ecosystem is like and what the people are like. And so, for those people who are approaching Mimecast for the first time, what is a typical onboarding process for new customers? What steps do you go through to do a security audit and to get them as protected as possible, as quickly as possible?
Yeah, look, Mimecast is often implemented on the back of two, like a security audit or a risk assessment. So we run an email security risk assessment that helps prospective clients understand the types of threats that they're seeing in their organization, and to really get an understanding of what the implications of those threats might be. So are they creating workload for their help desk? Are they creating risk for their users? Are there sort of different types of campaigns that might be highly targeted into their organizations? And that risk assessment is often done because the step before could have been a cybersecurity audit. There might have been cyber insurance policies that organization was considering, and they've had feedback that this is an area that they're not in control of. So with that data, so with the company recognizing the need, and then with data that identifies threats, we handhold every customer through an onboarding journey with our partners who are often delivering and integrating this into their security reference architecture. But we handhold to make sure that the outcome of reducing risk, minimizing threats that hit the SOC or the help desk are taken control of, and then also recommend how to implement best practices, whether that's around control or awareness training programs, where we're then starting to lift the culture of cybersecurity within the organization and help them feel more capable and confident in addressing those risks.
Yeah, I remember in the early days of the internet, there was an internet division and it was separate from the rest of the business. And over the years, after the dot-com bust, people sort of realized, hey, the whole business is an internet business. And here we are in 2023, and we have all these, IT, security divisions. And, when breaches happen, it affects the entire company. People now realize the entire company is a security company. It has to be, because otherwise they won't be in business. So this mind shift is just, this evolution is ongoing.
Absolutely. And the role of the security professional is to understand every aspect of that organization. And to be ahead of where risk might show up.
Yeah.
So that's a really big part of this conversation, is helping those security professionals take the time to sort of recognize their role in educating the sort of board, the executive team, as well as individuals within different sort of business units around some of the risks that they need to be aware of and how together they can solve that within their organization.
Yeah, what used to be a grudge spend for some boards, they realize now they've got to do it, otherwise they'll be on some other board.
Absolutely. Director responsibility is a big topic now.
Absolutely.
And, I guess there's personal liability. So these are great regulations that are helping to shift the conversation and make everyone part of that community defense.
Yeah. Now, you've mentioned mental wellness, mental health a number of times. It's really refreshing to hear a security company taking this seriously. There have been studies that show that cybersecurity people burn out and then become, dog walkers or accountants that just don't want to deal with the stress anymore. Numbers and accounting is less stressful than having to deal with being in a constant fight or flight state. And your second speaker today was Peter Coronius, the founder and CEO of Cyberminds and cyberminds.org. And I understand Mimecast is a sponsor. So what's your involvement there, and how are you going to be implementing those sort of things within your own organization?
Yeah, look, Peter, it was a great presentation today, and Peter's been a really sort of great partner for Mimecast over the last sort of 12, 18 months. Look, Peter and I met actually throughout COVID, and we were talking about the welfare of security teams. And we both saw and recognised the challenge COVID had presented to sort of security, but also business leaders. And I see, the power of leadership in the future is really the connection to people. Yeah. And that's not just the sort of technical and tactical skills that we're often focused on. That's really understanding sort of the human being and I guess understanding the people that we lead and that we serve. So we met in an early stage and we used Peter's experience and knowledge to run a program with some of our customer advisory board members.
Yeah.
And we invited them to a unique session where Peter demonstrated and ran a program using the iRest principle, and we had some really great feedback. In fact, we took it into our internal team and ran it with our internal staff, and saw nearly 2/3 of the organisation lean into that program and want to understand more, which I think was a really strong validation in that early stage of the power of understanding the psychology, understanding sort of people's mental needs and mental requirements, and being there to support that and being sort of very deliberate around that. So we continue to see a great partnership. We've seen Peter implement some of his program into our clients. We've been recommending that into some of our client base. But we continue to work together to recognise that not only do we need to provide strong preventative controls and address some of the email security and collaboration risks that Mimecast shows up with, but we can be a great partner to our customers by helping them understand how they can lead more capable, stronger, resilient teams. So I think there's a great synergy between the ones.
Your customers have resilient teams, and you have resilient teams who aren't going to disappear and go somewhere else, because retaining talent in this post-pandemic era with the great resignation and all the rest has been a challenging thing. So this is great to see this actually helping with retaining talent.
Absolutely. So, it definitely does. And I think it's something that we're sort of proud of. I think it represents our values, and we look forward to continuing to do good work with Peter.
Wonderful. So what else, before I ask some personal questions, should we know about Mimecast in brief that we haven't already discussed?
Yeah, look, I think Mimecast is at a really exciting juncture, and we see the risk of email security, which we've spent the last 20 years sort of protecting and providing resilience around, extending into tools like collaboration. So we're on a journey to recognize that any human-generated data, whether that might be on email or whether that's on Teams, Slack, is an opportunity for Mimecast to provide a better set of controls and help every organization work protected. So today has been talking about the platform that Mimecast is continuing to build out, that not only addresses today's risk, but is starting to take on and be aware of some of those future risks that we're seeing through sort of AI and machine learning and I guess what ChatGPT or generative AI is going to present to all organizations in the future. So today's been a great opportunity to sort of speak more about our capabilities, speak more about the intersection of those capabilities with our partners, where we're often seeing much bigger and stronger use cases when someone who may be dealing with a set of email risks via Mimecast, but also is looking at things like their identity with Okta, or they're looking at their XDR, EDR strategy with CrowdStrike. They might be looking to manage that via Exabeam through a SIEM and SOAR, as well as understanding how, I guess, the intersection of these categories works in a zero trust world with a partner like Netscope. So today's been a great opportunity to bring the industry together and help demonstrate to our customers that we can solve this collectively. And
it's a great demonstration as well of the interoperability of all of these vendors working together to provide a much more secure platform that is much it's hardened to the attack vectors that all the bad guys are continuously trying to find the chink in the armor.
Absolutely, and it ultimately requires real skills to then implement this well. And we've got some great integrators here, Brennan IT, CSO Group, Securo, who are also demonstrating their capabilities and how their understanding of these security vendors, I guess security category, as well as what boards and executive teams are looking for, can come together through a great partner.
Now, as we get to the end of the interview, I just want to ask a couple of questions about you as well.
Sure.
And can you please share a memory of your first computer?
Yeah, good question. My dad was in technology from a very early era, working on sort of big in the credit and banking systems back in the day. So I remember sort of when he first came back with a big chunk of tin and sort of put it on the desk, and I guess we had a word processor at the time, or sort of something as basic as that.
Yeah. Better than a typewriter, though.
Absolutely. But look, for me, it's sort of recognizing that, like, my father was around that, so therefore there was some, connection and excitement and I guess
synergy.
Intent to learn. Yeah, totally. And then we'll never forget the moment of seeing one show up at school and someone would wheel in the trolley with the single computer that we'd all sort of stare at and look at, and then get our 5 minutes to sort of type up a note or to put something on a document. But yeah, for me, it was sort of back in those days that I remember the first computer, but then obviously the evolution of that and how quickly it moved during that period as well.
And you're running Australia for a cybersecurity company. So I always like to ask, can you remember the first virus or malware experience that you had? And was that something that got you into technology, in the cybersecurity space, or what's the story there?
Yeah, look, I remember the corruption that we saw in the early days where someone put in a disk that might have had something inappropriate, and then all of a sudden there was
the stoned virus. I remember that one.
You got to rebuild, and we're sort of getting out the Windows disks and the 10 CDs and sort of starting again. I was fortunate enough to work in the Apple ecosystem, and they were sort of, for a period, they thought they were virus-proof.
Yeah.
And I think for 8 years, whilst I worked in the sort of Apple ecosystem, working with big, digital organizations, there was definitely that side where you probably weren't as exposed to some of the risks that show up today. But look, for me, Mimecast is at a really great position where it's the intersection of that risk, but also the recognition that the benefit of great security is the productivity gain, and I guess the ability to comply and sort of provide information to organizations to be more productive.
And so my second last question is to ask if you could please share some of the best advice you've received in life to help you get where you are today.
Look, the single quote, I know it's been bandied around, is the fastest way to success is to help others succeed. And I think for me, in the spirit of partnership and building great teams, it's just something that sort of comes through clearly and something that I connect with. And hopefully those that sort of embrace that see the benefit of. I think that the ability to be sort of to give back and to recognise that there's a learning opportunity in those moments, I think for me has been quite profound, and something that hopefully is representative of Mimecast values and the work we do as a team.
I was thinking before, when you're talking about all the different partners, and that book from Hillary Clinton came to mind. It takes a village, to raise a child. Well, it takes a village of all these different companies and vendors and partners to protect a company.
Absolutely.
And all the people in the company to work together. I mean, it really does take a village.
Absolutely, and we've spent a lot of, today's conversation not only talking about what we've got to do internally, but the role of government, the role of our sort of security defences and some of the investments that government are making.
Well, just the news this week as we're recording was that the government wants to be able to go into a business and take over its IT if it's under some sort of really severe ransomware attack, something they can only do for utilities at the moment. And so government is thinking of really getting involved because it's such an incredibly crucial issue.
Yeah, these are really tough conversations, but I think what we're seeing is a government that's recognising the role that regulation plays to continue to move industry forward. And that's a very positive place for us as, a cyber industry, but also, as for the economy in its whole. So I think that partnership between industry recognising where its gaps are and where its needs are, government recognising some of the threats that are out there around the world and how it can play a role in aggregating some of that intelligence and bringing that back into industry. And then also the role of people and the citizens to become more cyber aware and understand at a personal level, how do I sort of keep my sort of wealth safe? How do I keep my personal information safe? How do I understand the sort of risks that I'm exposed to by using a mobile phone or being on the internet? But as we get all of those components together, we can become a cyber secure or the most secure nation by 2030. But it will take everyone understanding their role to bring that together and for all of us to be more cyber safe.
Yeah, I know that every time the internet Safer Internet Day rolls around, I always like to say every day should be Safer Internet Day. It's like every day should have a measure of phishing email, lessons to make sure you don't get scammed.
Absolutely. Every day I think we probably have a little bit of blowback and pushback from the organisations. But look, it needs to be top of mind for everyone. That is absolutely true. And I think the more we can do to have the conversation and make people aware of that, I think the safer we'll all be.
So what is your final message to iTWire viewers and readers and to your current and future customers and partners?
Yeah, well, look, firstly, thank you for the conversation today. I think that's a big part of what we want to do through events like this, is to get out there and help people understand that there are solutions out there. There's an opportunity for us to sort of listen and understand your particular needs as an organisation, and then be creative with other partners who are sort of solving this challenge together, to then protect your organisation from the risks that you may be exposed to. But this is a community initiative. This is coming together as an industry. It's coming together with the customer at the heart of the conversation, but recognising there's great talent and great skills here in Australia and throughout APAC that can solve this risk for our clients. And we want to say thanks. Like, we've been in Mimecast. Mimecast has been in this region for 10 years, and this is our 20th year of doing business globally. And we've had some very loyal and committed customers. And this is an opportunity to say thanks to them and continue to show them the innovation they need to keep their organisations safe and secure. Well,
Nick Lennon, APAC VP of Mimecast, thank you so much for taking the time. Best of luck with the rest of the event, and I hope we can speak again in the future.
Absolutely. Thanks, Alex. That's been great.
Bye-bye.